Imagine spending $60,000 on a truck, only to have the engine fail before 10,000 miles. These are the 21 worst trucks that nobody buys, according to Consumer Reports and real-world owner data. They broke down early, tanked in sales, and left drivers with massive repair bills and zero support. If you're even thinking of buying a truck, watch this list first, because the wrong choice could cost you thousands. We have a truck that's practically a rebadged Nissan. On number 21, the Mercedes-Benz X-Class, produced from 2018 to 2020, was supposed to redefine what a luxury pickup could be. Instead, it became a global sales disappointment, moving just over 16,000 units in 2018 and about 10,000 more in early 2019. For a worldwide launch from a premium brand, those numbers were abysmal. The problem? Buyers saw straight through the badge. Underneath the Mercedes styling was a Nissan Navara platform with shared 2.3L diesel engines, and interior trim that felt far too familiar. Even the key fob was recycled, and while it was marketed as a premium truck, it felt more like a $45,000 Nissan in disguise. Fit and finish didn't live up to the three-pointed star. Things got worse. Over 6,000 X-Class utes sold in Australia were recalled in 2023 due to oil leaks threatening rear brake performance. By mid-2020, Mercedes pulled the plug entirely. Owners were left with a rapidly depreciating orphaned truck and dwindling support. For a brand that promises the best or nothing, the X-Class delivered the latter. Let's talk about the truck that managed to disappear before anyone even noticed it was here. On number 20 is the Fiat Fullback from 2016 to 2019. Fiat tried to shortcut its way into the pickup world by rebadging the Mitsubishi L200, but buyers saw right through it. In the UK, it sold barely 1,900 units in its final year. Across Europe, it couldn't even crack 2% market share. Why? Because it offered nothing Mitsubishi didn't already sell, with fewer dealers and no brand identity. Fiat didn't tweak the styling, didn't add features, and didn't convince buyers they weren't just paying for a Mitsubishi with different badges. Then came Euro 6 emissions laws. To keep selling, Fiat would have needed to invest in costly diesel upgrades for a truck that no one was buying, so they pulled the plug. Total sales over its entire lifespan? Just 22,000 units. That's less than half of what the Ford Ranger sold in 1 year. Today, the Fullback is an automotive ghost, a forgettable flop where the only full thing was the lot it sat on. Is a truck so structurally flawed that some literally snapped in half? On number 19, the Nissan Navara D40, produced from 2005 to 2015. Owners of these mid-size pickups, especially early builds from 2005 to 2008, began posting shocking photos of frames corroded to the point of total failure. The truck's backbone would fracture near the cab, a high-stress point, sometimes while parked and other times while driving. And yet, Nissan issued no widespread recall, dismissing it as a small number of cases, while many owners were forced to scrap their vehicles. The D40's problems didn't end with rust. Its 2.5L diesel was notorious for timing chain stretch and premature failure. Clutches failed so often that some owners replaced them multiple times. Recalls included steering shaft detachment, airbag ruptures, and bonnets flying open at speed. Even though it achieved strong sales during its peak years, like in Australia, grabbing over 28% of its segment in 2007, the damage was done. In 2014, Nissan replaced the D40 with the overhauled D23, quietly addressing the frame with high tensile steel. But for thousands of D40 owners, the trust and the truck was already broken. Before we move on, if you're into the kind of info that makes you rethink your next big purchase, this is the channel for it. Tap subscribe and stay sharp. On number 18 is the GMC Canyon from 2015 to 2022. Shockingly, the worst-selling midsize pickup in 2022 with just 27,821 sold. That figure pales next to its Chevy Colorado sibling, not to mention Toyota's Tacoma. Early in this generation, battery drain issues left unsuspecting owners stranded, while a recall targeted faulty automatic emergency braking. Consumer Reports consistently flagged the Canyon's reliability, citing climate system hiccups and glitchy electronics. Buyers complained it offered nothing unique. Same engines, same platform as the Colorado, but a higher price. Even the optional diesel, promising torque and MPG, developed reputation-sinking emissions and maintenance headaches. The interior felt a generation behind by 2019, with cheap plastics and an outdated infotainment system. Meanwhile, rival trucks introduced new comfort, safety, and resale value. The Canyon's second generation quietly fizzled, overshadowed by more capable competitors. GMC tried to redeem itself with a 2023 redesign featuring a Turbo 4 and improved technology, but it was too little, too late for these earlier models that never captured the loyalty GM expected. Okay, so offering nothing new is bad, but how about offering everything, including problems nobody asked for? On number 17 is the Jeep Gladiator, introduced in 2020, a truck that tried to be everything and ended up pleasing almost no one. Despite strong off-road routes, it quickly earned a reputation for reliability problems and safety concerns. Owners reported the infamous death wobble, violent steering shakes at highway speeds, requiring damper replacements and multiple dealer visits. Manual transmission models weren't safe either. A major recall in 2023 affected over 14,000 units for a clutch defect that could lead to engine bay fires. Early model years were plagued with tech glitches. Rear-view cameras stuck on, start-stop failures, infotainment freezes. Consumer Reports gave the 2020 Gladiator just 2 out of 5 for predicted reliability, flagging issues in the drivetrain, electronics, and climate system. And while it looked like a Wrangler with a bed, it inherited all the drawbacks too. Poor fuel economy, top-heavy handling, and a bouncy ride. With a starting price north of $50,000 and a payload rating lower than most rivals, it never caught on with serious truck buyers. Sales dropped from around 90,000 in 2021 to just over 42,000 in 2024. The Gladiator became proof that not every Jeep should be a pickup. On number 16 is the Nissan Frontier from 2005 to 2021, a truck that overstayed its welcome by more than a decade. With barely any updates over 16 years, it became a rolling relic in a modern market. Early models were plagued by the infamous strawberry milkshake of death, where a cracked radiator would leak coolant into the transmission, destroying it, usually just after 90,000 miles. Owners paid $3,000 or more for repairs, while Nissan quietly extended warranties. Timing chain guides failed early, causing whining noises and potential engine damage. Fuel sending units broke down in 2005-2008 models, leaving owners with dead gauges or vehicles that wouldn't start. Premature clutch wear, differential leaks, and widespread electrical glitches pushed repair costs sky high. Rust issues and trim degradation were common, especially in salt-prone regions. Even the final years weren't spared. Nissan recalled 2020-2021 Frontiers due to rollaway risk from faulty software. It wasn't until 2022 that Nissan finally replaced it with a fully redesigned Frontier. But for over 15 years, the second-gen model remained a cautionary tale of how refusing to evolve can turn a truck into a punchline. So what's scarier than a truck that refuses to evolve? One that evolves too fast and leaves reliability behind. On number 15 is the 2022 Toyota Tundra, a long-awaited redesign that instantly became Toyota's most unreliable truck. After 14 years without a major update, Toyota replaced the V8 with a twin-turbo V6 and hybrid option, switched to coil spring rear suspension, and packed in tech like a 14-inch screen, but reliability tanked. Consumer Reports rated it below average, and J.D. Power echoed the concern. Early owners saw turbo failures, engine shutdowns under 10,000 miles, jerky shifting, and hybrid overheating in hot climates. Software bugs were rampant, frozen backup cameras, glitchy steering assist, and infotainment crashes. Even the build quality disappointed, with misaligned panels, roof leaks, and paint peeling within months. Sales rose slightly to 94,000 in 2022 from 81,000 the year prior, but far from competitor levels. Resale value dropped fast, with 5-year depreciation estimates nearing 38%. For Toyota fans who expected bulletproof reliability, this was a gut punch. The 2022 Tundra was meant to catch the competition. Instead, it gave loyal owners every reason to walk away. On number 14 is the Ford F-150 Hybrid Power Boost, launched in 2021 and already infamous for dragging down Ford's reliability reputation. Consumer Reports ranked it the least reliable vehicle in 2022 and among the bottom 10 again in 2024, scoring just 7 out of 100. Why? Constant check engine lights, battery drain, drivetrain shutters, and generator failures. Owners faced hard shifts and transmission hesitation from the complex 10-speed hybrid unit, so much so that Ford issued multiple TSBs just to fix shift logic. Real-world MPG supposed to be 24 combined, but CR tests showed only 20. Worse still, the Power Boost adds 750 pounds in hybrid hardware but drops towing capacity compared to the standard 3.5L EcoBoost. And if it breaks, a hybrid battery or transmission replacement can cost thousands. Multiple owners reported months-long service delays for electrical issues, axle failures, and battery faults. Despite early hype, the Power Boost Quick Cly became a reliability outlier in the F-150 lineup, and a cautionary tale for mixing high-tech complexity with everyday truck work. That was Ford's futuristic gamble. The next one? A classic V8 that turned into an expensive game of mechanical roulette. On number 13 is the Chevrolet Silverado 1500 from 2014 to 2021, a truck GM sold by the millions, but one plagued with problems under the hood, inside the cabin, and at the dealership. Owners of 5.3L and 6.2L V8 models reported collapsed lifters due to GM's active and dynamic fuel management systems, often triggering misfires and thousands in repairs. Even after redesigned lifters in 2021, issues persisted. The 8-speed automatic was no better. Hard shifts, violent shuddering, and torque converter failures became so common that GM issued TSBs and extended warranties, but lawsuits still followed. Consumer Reports ranked multiple model years as below average in reliability, while NHTSA logged thousands of complaints. Drivers reported center screen blackouts, AC evaporator failures, and the notorious Chevy shake at highway speeds. From 2014 to 2021, over a dozen recalls hit everything from brakes to airbag software. Resale values crashed, depreciation climbed past 47%, and forum users warned, if it's a used Silverado from this era, run. Even GM fleet mechanics admitted Rams had become more dependable. This generation was a reliability collapse GM still hasn't fully recovered from. On number 12 is the Great Wall Steed 5 from the 2010s, a truck that shouldn't have left the drawing board. This budget pickup earned a jaw-dropping 0-star safety rating in multiple crash tests. In some markets, it came without airbags or ABS. One test reported very serious injury risk in a frontal impact. The build quality? Just as dire. Autocar slammed it with a 2-star rating, calling out flimsy panels, poor fitment, and paint that faded within years. But the real scandal hit in 2012, when over 23,000 units, including Steeds, were recalled in Australia for asbestos in engine gaskets. Yes, asbestos. For around $16,000 new, it was one of the cheapest pickups on the market, and you could feel it in every corner. Add to that an outdated 2.4L powertrain that felt 2 decades behind, and the Steed 5 couldn't compete with even the most basic global pickups. Great Wall tried exporting under different names, like the Wingle, but sales were negligible. It was discontinued in the UK by 2017, and the brand's dealer networks overseas fell apart soon after. The Steed 5 proved one thing: safety and savings don't mix. However, It never pretended to be premium. It aimed higher and still belly flopped. On number 11 is the Dodge, later Ram Dakota, built from 2005 to 2011 during the messy transition when Ram spun off from Dodge. By the end of its run, the Dakota had no clear identity. It had ballooned in size, guzzled fuel like a full-size, and offered none of the capability to justify it. The final gen models saddled buyers with an aging 3.7L V6 or a thirsty 4.7L V8, both underpowered, both inefficient. As gas prices rose, so did complaints. It lacked basic safety features like side curtain airbags and stability control, even as rivals made them standard. Sales reflected the slide, from over 104,000 units in 2005 to just over 12,000 by 2011. Mechanical woes followed loyalists to the end. Ball joint failures, oil leaks, front brake lockups, shaft vibrations, and failing transmissions riddled owner forums. The Dakota never got a modern refresh, and when Ram shifted focus to the full-size 1500, this mid-size relic was left to rot on lots. By the end, the only thing mid-size about the Dakota was its relevance. On number 10 is the Toyota Tacoma from 2016 to 2023, a rare misfire from a brand known for getting trucks right. Consumer Reports branded the early third-gen Tacoma a worst buy, citing issues like leaking differentials, vague steering, and a cabin that felt more economy than durable. The 6-speed automatic drew complaints for slow shifts and cold start hesitations, while manual models from 2016 to 2017 suffered premature clutch failures. Toyota quietly corrected in 2018. Paint durability was another letdown. Owners reported chipping and peeling within months, and frame rust concerns lingered, especially in colder climates. Comfort didn't fare much better. Drivers criticized the low, awkward seating and stiff ride, especially on long hauls. Meanwhile, missing tech like Android Auto wasn't addressed until 2020. Despite high sales, the Tacoma's reliability scores hovered around average for years. The 2024 4th-gen redesign finally overhauled everything, from platform to powertrain to interior comfort. But for nearly a decade, the Tacoma coasted on its reputation while quietly frustrating thousands of buyers. On number 9 is the Ram 1500 from 2010 to 2018, the DS generation that came with bold styling, but baggage straight from Chrysler's dark era. Early model years earned the dreaded 1 out of 5 reliability rating from Consumer Reports, and for good reason. Owners dealt with engine sludge, crumbling dashboards, and notorious electrical failures tied to the TIPM unit, an electronic gremlin that could randomly kill the fuel pump, disable airbags, or prevent the truck from starting altogether. The 8-speed auto, while praised on paper, wasn't bulletproof either. Plenty of drivers reported hard shifts, gear hunting, and full transmission failures on higher mileage trucks. And if you bought a 4x4, the transfer case and front diff weren't much more dependable. Recalls? The 2011 model alone racked up 16, covering everything from axle nuts that could detach to airbag modules that might not deploy. Even as Ram kept selling this design as the 1500 Classic into the 2020s, reliability scores never climbed above average. Stylish and capable? Sure, but for many owners, it was a rolling reminder of why Ram had to reinvent itself. Okay, Ram had history to fall back on, but what happens when you try to break into the big leagues and nobody lets you play? On number 8, we've got a full-size truck that aimed for the big leagues and barely made it off the bench. The Nissan Titan, second generation, produced from 2016 through 2023. It was supposed to be Nissan's answer to the F-150, but instead, it became the slowest-selling full-size pickup in its class. In 2022, it managed just over 15,000 units in the US, compared to Ford's over 650,000 F-Series. Nissan had hoped for 100,000 Titans sold annually. It never even got close. The Titan's biggest problem? A reputation it could never shake. Consumer Reports gave it a predicted reliability score of 1 out of 5. Owners complained about everything from persistent electrical faults and hard-shifting transmissions to brake failures and cylinder scoring in early V8 models. Later updates introduced a 9-speed gearbox, but issues like erratic shifting and power distribution module failures continued. Resale value was abysmal. It retained just around 53% of its value after 5 years, the worst in its segment. Fleet buyers ignored it. Aftermarket support was thin. And in 2024, Nissan finally pulled the plug. The Titan's legacy? A textbook case of a truck that couldn't earn trust, hold value, or keep pace with the competition. We just saw what happens when a truck flops quietly. Now here's what it looks like when it flops loudly and in 6 figures. On number 7 is the GMC Hummer EV from 2022 onward, a 6-figure super truck that promised moon landings and delivered parking problems. Tipping the scales at over 9,000 pounds, it's heavier than some school buses. That mass translates to the worst braking distance of any pickup tested, 137 feet from 60 to 0, and it chews through tires and garages with equal aggression. The 212 kWh battery gives decent range, but efficiency is abysmal. Just 47 mpge combined, the worst of any EV truck, with real-world emissions closer to a gas-powered V8 when you factor in energy sources. Early software bugs didn't help. Owners faced rebooting infotainment systems, error messages from the 4-wheel steering, and water intrusion recalls for battery connectors within months of launch. And despite a $112,000 starting price, one owner reported their truck spent 30-plus days in the shop for battery management failures. Charging issues, federal tax credit disqualification, and slow rollout didn't help either. Just 854 units were delivered in 2022. For all its torque and tech, the Hummer EV turned out to be an expensive spectacle nobody actually bought. On number 6 is the Tesla Cybertruck from 2024, a truck that spent 4 years building hype and about 4 minutes breaking hearts. Originally promised in 2021 at $39,900, it finally arrived in late 2023 with a base price of $81,985, over double. Despite nearly 2 million reservations, just 38,965 units were sold by the end of 2024, with quarterly deliveries declining by Q4. Its sharp stainless steel panels turned heads and twisted production lines. Owners reported misaligned doors, rattling trim, and panel gaps wide enough to fit fingers. Recalls hit fast. Stuck accelerator pedals, windshield wiper failures, and trim detaching mid-drive. Visibility issues and rock-hard seats didn't help, nor did the fact it's too wide for many garages and too weird for fleet buyers. Even the range and towing promises remain largely unproven. Tesla has offered discounts to stimulate demand, a rare move for them. Critics say it's become more meme than machine. If the Cybertruck was meant to kill the pickup as we know it, it may have only wounded itself. There's one huge reveal waiting at the end of this list, just like this one. But first, let's talk about what happens when you build a truck and forget to tell anyone. On number 5 is the Suzuki Equator from 2009 to 2012, a truck so forgettable, most buyers didn't even know it existed. Over 4 full model years, Suzuki moved less than 8,000 units in the entire US. Some months, sales didn't even hit triple digits. The Equator wasn't a bad truck mechanically. It was just a rebadged Nissan Frontier with no added value. Same 4.0L V6, same dated interior, same 2005 era tech. But unlike the Frontier, you couldn't buy it everywhere. Suzuki's limited dealership network made it harder to find, harder to service, and nearly impossible to resell. The timing was terrible too. Launched during a financial downturn, the Equator landed in a market already dominated by better-known mid-size trucks like the Tacoma and Colorado. It had no standout features, and by the time Suzuki pulled the plug on its entire US auto operation in 2013, owners were left with a discontinued badge and scarce parts availability. Even today, used Equators are so rare they're practically extinct, and not in a good, collectible way. For a truck that barely made a dent in the market, the Equator is now mostly remembered as a failed experiment with no clear audience. On number 4 is the 2019 Ford F-350 Super Duty, a heavy-duty workhorse with a reliability score so bad it should come with a warning label. On paper, this thing sounds unstoppable: 7,640 pounds of payload, up to 35,000 pounds of towing capacity, and a big badge that screams "Built Ford Tough." But look closer, and the numbers tell a different story, like a Consumer Reports reliability rating of just 4 out of 100. That's not just low, it's catastrophic. Owners were hammered by one issue after another. The infamous death wobble, a violent front-end shake at highway speeds, triggered hundreds of complaints and costly steering overhauls that didn't always solve the problem. Then came the engine nightmares. DPF failures as early as 80,000 miles, fuel system failures from Bosch pump defects, and warranty denials, leaving some owners with 4,000 plus bills. Add in 15 recalls, including transmissions shifting into neutral mid-drive, and it's no surprise that owner satisfaction tanked. Real-world stories of trucks breaking down at 45,000 miles with no support only solidified its reputation as a lemon in disguise. All in all, it was a giant truck that broke under pressure. Now let's see what happens when a truck fails before it even gets noticed. On number 3 is the Isuzu I-Series from 2006 to 2008, a mid-size truck that barely made a blip before vanishing for good. Despite Isuzu's solid reputation in commercial vehicles, this rebadged Chevrolet Colorado failed to impress in every way that counted. In its best year, the I-Series sold just over 4,100 units. For context, Toyota was selling that many Tacomas every month. The base 2.8-liter engine was underpowered and noisy, later upgraded to 2.9 liters with 185 horsepower, but it still lagged far behind the competition in towing and acceleration. Reviewers slammed it for a harsh ride, excessive wind noise, and a cheap-feeling cabin. Safety? The Colorado it was based on earned poor side impact crash scores from IIHS, and the I-Series likely shared the same structural weaknesses. It didn't help that Isuzu's dealership network was vanishing by the day, less than 300 by 2006, most barely moving 2 units a month. When Isuzu finally exited the US market in 2009, the I-Series went down with it. Today, it's mostly forgotten, and with weak resale, scarce parts, and no support network, that's probably for the best. On number 2 is the Lordstown Endurance from 2022, an electric pickup so rare, most people didn't even know it existed. And for good reason. Only 31 units were actually sold that year. Yes, 31. That's not a typo, that's less than most dealers move in a day. Even worse, nearly half of those trucks were recalled almost immediately for critical electrical issues, including corrosion in high-voltage battery connectors. With EPA range capped at 200 miles, outdated suspension design, and a bare-bones interior, the Endurance was already struggling to compete with EVs like the Ford Lightning or Rivian R1T. But the real problem wasn't just the truck, it was the company itself. Lordstown Motors was financially imploding from the start. By mid-2023, the factory had shut down, executives were jumping ship, and bankruptcy wiped out any chance of long-term support. Owners were left with no parts, no warranty, and no one answering the phones. If you bought one, you didn't just lose value, you lost a lifeline. The Endurance didn't flop because it was bad. It flopped because it never had a shot. A truck so dead on arrival, it never even left the starting line. On number 1 is the Toyota Hilux Diesel from 2015 to 2020, proof that even legends can stumble hard. This 8th-gen Hilux, powered by the 2.4L and 2.8L GD series diesels, became infamous for one thing: DPF drama. The diesel particulate filter routinely clogged in city driving, leading to surging white smoke, limp mode, and awful fuel economy. It got so bad in Australia, a Hilux stronghold, that a class action lawsuit forced Toyota to admit fault. By 2022, they were ordered to pay hefty damages for selling trucks with a known emissions defect. But it wasn't just the DPF. The resulting back pressure caused internal soot buildup, oil dilution, and wear on critical components like injectors and EGR valves. Owners also complained about premature frame rust in humid regions, especially near rear spring mounts. Toyota eventually fixed things with a mid-2020 update, but the damage was done. Those early 8th gen diesels became the Hilux years nobody brags about, and in the world of Hilux, that's almost unthinkable. Now you know what not to buy. But what if you want peace of mind on 4 wheels? Click here to see the 20 best sedans that almost never break down, backed by real-world reliability scores from Consumer Reports. Trust us, these cars make every commute feel smarter.